So here's my mum. I gave this to a casting director who casts for films and TV commercials. I said, find my mum, please, you know. She died in 2008. She died 2 years prior to taking this photograph. Sorry, the photograph I took. And I gave this to the casting director, and she found my mum in Leamington Spa, just down the road from here. And here we go. There's my mum. And this was the first picture we took. How do you take pictures like this? You use a load of I know this is focused on imaging. You use a load of glucose or syrup, and you use a camera, a Leica S2 medium format camera, because Leica want to know how the S2 performs by me taking it on the road for 2 weeks. And then you get a studio that's really cheap because it's August and they can't get anybody to go in the studio. So all this management to get your work done, you know, making things happen, however difficult they might be. So there's the panel here, all writing about me. There's a little schoolboy. There's me at school. There's the picture you saw earlier. Here's a relationship between my mother and her sister. And so we carry on with text boards, and here we go. I'll just go through. And that was the photograph. And the text boards, as you can see, right below all the photographs. And this was in a chapel next to the Notre Dame in November 2010, and it ran through to the end of January 2011, and was voted the best photographic exhibition in Paris Photo of 2010. And every single frame, very black country this, every single frame was different in the show. And they were all inspired by a frame I saw in a church in Derbyshire when I was doing a workshop for Paul Hill, a very good old friend of mine. It's my wife. So this is a picture of my wife. And there's my wife with my mum. My mum absolutely adored my wife. And there we are with my mum in the kitchen. And my wife is Icelandic, and she bought my mother these Icelandic socks. So that's the last photograph of my mother before she died, really. And you can see here's the chapel, here's the big print that Metro kindly. And the Leica S2, I can tell you, is just unbelievable piece of kit. It's just unbelievable. If you've got to spare 20, 30,000 for a couple of lenses in the body, it's just unbelievable. And then I went back to the factory where my dad worked. And this is the boss's son, who's now 71, 72. This is Robert Catesby. That was one of the gunpowder plotters that was killed by the sheriff of Worcester up the road from this factory. And that's the Earl of Dudley, turn of the century Earl of Dudley, that owned most of the industry in the Black Country from my bedroom window. This Earl of Dudley, got all the photographs in the National Portrait Gallery, and he's exactly a replica of the Earl of Dudley of that period, exact replica. All his outfit, this is Robert Catesby, exact replica of Robert Catesby's outfit. And it's based upon a Caravaggio painting called The Card Sharps, or The Card Players. And so, yeah, we talk about it, the Earls of Dudley, Catesby, blah, blah. And then my dad always suckered up to the bosses. I used to look at my dad and he'd be all humble in front of these factory owners and that. So my aunt, who's still alive, was 87. She said, "Oh, Bri, you looks just like our Jimmy." So I played my dad, and I do look just like my dad. So here I am playing my dad, suckering up to the Earl of Dudley. And then I talk about my dad, about my guilt, and all my guilt. I didn't see him die or anything like that. And my performance in 87 when I mimed the death of a sunflower to get rid of all the guilt I felt about my father and how well, anyway, blah, blah, blah. It's all written here. And then after my dad died He didn't smoke or anything, but he died of lung cancer. For some reason, I started photographing my friends, male friends, with Wonderloaf sliced bread on their backs, inspired by my father's death. So I did that series. And then I did a project at Broadgate, where these workers with their tools, because they said at Broadgate in the 80s that 14 people had been included in the insurance policy of building Broadgate in terms of deaths. There'd be 14 workers they felt would die building Broadgate. And my father died at that time, and I was given a commission by people who build Broadgate to do a project of my own, and I did these workers. I think one of the strongest bodies of work I've ever done. And this is all inspired by my dad's death, you know? So the exhibition is about inspirations. Because I didn't have enough money to shoot all new material, I had to build it up by using other things, and I'm glad I did now. So this is part of, that was the total section there of the inspiration my father's death gave me for my photography. And this is called The Death of Manufacturing. I designed this sculpture here of, like, I suppose a Hamlet figure, I don't know. And yeah, this is self-explanatory, isn't it? Because the Black Country's industry is like almost disappeared, really, heavy industry. And then I did one of the last surviving chain making companies, inspired, the lighting inspired by Caravaggio again. These are chain makers, still making chain by hand in Cradley, which is a small town in the Black Country. And also a woman who makes it. This is real chain, there's no photoshops or anything like that. That is glowing red hot piece of chain. And she is literally a chain maker in Cradley. And these all sit in this chapel. You can see here some of the pictures we've been seeing. Chain makers, you can see here Catesby and the Borough Foundry, and my dad worked. And you can see here, it's all about the inspiration I'll talk about next, I think. And then there was this cat when I was a little boy. This little cat used to scratch me. And so I built a sculpture in the 80s, actually, of this cat's tail. This is about a 6-foot cat's tail I built. It's one of my sculptures. And here's me as a little boy. And there's the cat coming around to scratch me. And I talk about this cat, and me and the relationship with this cat. This is around my Auntie Eve's at number 9 Stocking Street. We were brought up in number 1 Stocking Street, my mum's sister. And so here we go, we run through here, and you can see the workers here, me here. And I'm an avid Cradley Speedway fan, which my father introduced me to. Here he is here on the committee of Cradley Speedway Supporters Club, and my mum. And then this lot embodies everything really. Cradley Speedway rider of the 60s, the Lone Ranger, and a working lady who works in the Black Country. And here's the Speedway rider based on a Zurbarán painting, Spanish painter. And that's my dad's machine, his last machine behind here at the Borough Foundry. So it's the Speedway rider in front of my dad's machine. My dad introduced me to Speedway, and it's been with me now for over 50 years, Speedway racing. I was a Speedway promoter myself for 3 or 4 years in the late 90s, early noughties, whatever they call it. And so this is a triptych. This is David Crockett. That was the Lone Ranger, and there was David Crockett. And this is the triptych here that sits on the chapel. And then I come to my dad's youngest sister. Here she is here, and her husband Fred, my Auntie Elsie and Uncle Fred. There I am down in Porthcawl, I think, with my mum and my cousin Susan, and that's me there playing in the sand. And there we come to Else and Fred. Fred, I think, is 85 and Else is 87. The last remaining Griffin, really, she is, I think. The big family, and they didn't get on that well, or everybody, as big families don't. And this is the rent lady. The rent lady would come, stinking of snuff, dressed like a man, exactly dressed like this. So she was found up near Haworth, a replica of the lady who used to come and get my mum and dad's rent. And I had to organise her coming down by the train and a hotel for her in the Black Country. And she's an actress that lives near Haworth, and this casting director found her up there. And then Roger Burton, who styled everybody, styled them exactly as the rent lady was. And then I talk about going away, going going on trips in the coach, you know, and going off on the coach that never really got there because it couldn't get up the Horseshoe Pass. You know, coaches were old and decrepit in those days, so we had to turn back half the time. And I used this as a Depeche Mode picture in the early 80s that hadn't really been seen as far off places. And then the key. I mean, I didn't even get the key of the door to be able to go in my own home until I was 21. And immediately I was 21, I got the key and I left home to become a photographer. And the next picture is of a vicar launching off his curate. It's the Vicar of Sedgley, in the highest church in the Black Country. And this is another Black Country vicar, Gary at Wordsley Church. And then I talk about heaven. I always try and think about it. What is heaven like? And I said that growing up in the Black Country amongst the factories, the whole world appeared to be partly made out of metal. Everything you touched seemed to be iron or steel. When playing, eating, sleeping, or at school, there was constant music coming from the factories. The bass would be the big forge hammers. Tenors would be the stamping works, with the sopranos tapping away in the bucket and bath works. Being a churchgoer, which I was in the church, I was in the choir. Being a churchgoer, I even believed that heaven was partly made out of steel. And then I've got a picture of heaven. That's heaven. Here's the man that makes the faggots in Netherton. There's the faggot. This is what we grew up with. This makes photographers, this does. Next one, trotters, and then the sausages making love. So this is one of my favourite pictures, actually, over the last 2 or 3 years. 2 sausages, a black one and a white one, making love. When you think about it, it's very symbolic, I think. You could say this is racism, couldn't you? You could say this is everyone coming together. This is one of my favourite pictures of all time, actually, believe it or not. A white pudding and a black pudding. Then next. And then I talk about there's the war memorial outside my church where I was a choir boy. And I talk about my book. And now this is my latest project for the Library of Birmingham. This is like 3 weeks old. These are the people who built and are going to make the Library of Birmingham, just the beginning of the project, okay? And that's it. Thank you. Pleasure.